to the Gen Z Show. I'm your host, James McLamb. Have you ever been working with young people and noticed that they really have a fixed mindset, that they are not developing a growth mindset? Do you struggle with finding some ways to help them find that growth mindset? Well, you're going to want to listen to our podcast today, watch our podcast today, as I interview Kevin Palmieri. Kevin is the CEO and founder of Next Level University and a podcast called Next Level University that really helps people reach their goals in life, to reach that next level, to find that growth mindset. We really examine it today in great detail and also discuss techniques and tips on how to help that young person overcome that fixed mindset. Because we know they can never succeed in life, never excel in life, unless they really have developed the right mindset to help them reach their goals in life. So today's interview with Kevin Palmieri is going to be a great one, and let's get right to it. Kevin, welcome to our show today. Thank you so much for agreeing to be our guest.
My pleasure, James. I appreciate it. I'm excited to chat and see what we can hopefully deliver to the audience in the way of value.
Well, you know, I think it's so neat the way that the world kind of works together and how people who may never have run into each other at all through an online space, online communities can connect and find synergy between them and their missions on how they want to bring value to life. And that's really how we connected. I mentioned that in the introduction, but you know, it's really how we connected is being on a podcast community website and seeing there's some synergy there and reaching out to each other. So thank you for being our guest today.
Of course. I'm excited. My goal is to serve. My goal is to add value. And if I can say something that in any way, shape, or form influences or helps the younger generation, I'm doing a good thing.
Well, I do appreciate it. Now, I told our audience that you're the founder and co-host of the Next Level University podcast, but they want to hear more about you from you. So if you wouldn't mind, just telling them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am Kevin Palmieri. I am just a gentleman who wants to have an impact on the world. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I did not meet my father until I was 27 years old. So that's definitely something that has shaped me into the man that you see today. But I believe at a deep level that if there was self-improvement in my life at an earlier age, I wouldn't have had to go through many of the pains, the trials, and the tribulations that I did. So that really is our goal. Our ultimate goal is to put holistic self-improvement into the pocket of every human on the planet every single day from anywhere in the world, completely for free. And that is Next Level University in a nutshell.
So what inspired, tell our audience what is Next Level University, what is the value of it, and what inspired you and your partner to found this?
So Next Level University is a podcast, but it is also a coaching business. So the podcast, we do an episode every single day on holistic. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, James. But that's my baby, and I'm very blessed and grateful to be able to do it. Our focus is holistic self-improvement. So with our podcast, we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. I want to be a well-rounded human being. I don't want to be quote unquote successful. I want to be fulfilled. And that's really our ultimate purpose. And I actually started this podcast under a different name. It was called the Hyper Conscious Podcast in 2017. And what happened was I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. I assumed that amount of money was going to make me super happy, super fulfilled, and it was going to take away any of the internal things that I was dealing with. And after working really, really, really hard, I realized that for most of my life, I'd lived unconsciously. I was just kind of going through the motions. I wasn't living intentionally. And the opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So I started this podcast to help people raise their consciousness, because I think the more aware you are, the more powerful you become. And what ended up happening, James, was when I started the podcast, I fell in love with podcasting and I fell out of love with my job. And I didn't care about my job anymore. It required a lot of traveling. I wasn't willing to do the traveling. So I start calling out of work. I start leaving the job site early. I start showing up late, and it eventually got to the point where I felt so in between two worlds. I felt so stuck. I felt so trapped. I felt so just hopeless that I was sitting in a hotel room in New Jersey, 6 hours from where I lived, and I had 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one was on a different station, and one was saying, "You're stuck here forever, Kev. If you do work up the courage to leave this job, what are your friends going to think? Because you make more money than any of your friends. What's your family going to think? You make more money than anybody in your family. And do you really think you're going to do this podcast thing? Like, that's what we're going to do? We're going to leave this and go run with the podcast?" It just didn't seem very feasible at the time. And
I can
James,
understand that argument going on in your head.
makes sense. It makes sense. And in that moment, I felt that if I took my life, I would take my problems with me. And that was the darkest spot, the darkest hole I've ever been in. Luckily, I have a wonderful community, and I had a great person to reach out to, and he really helped me get through that. But I ended up leaving my job and then going all in what we're doing today. And I was very broke for several years, and that was it. I want to be the person that I needed. And a lot of the people I looked up to, or the people that were into self-improvement or business, I didn't resonate with. They weren't relatable to me. So that really is my goal. I want to be a relatable person who is successful but fulfilled and can help other people find their own unique version of that.
Yeah, Kevin, I was thinking about when you were telling your story, how there are so many of us that have had to experience that awakening moment. For you, it was in your late 20s. For others, it may be later in life, and how you're just bringing value to them. But as everything, I look at it from the lens of how are we going to impact youth of this? So how can the things that you guys do be a vehicle to help us really change and help you thrive, which is our goal, is to see them accomplish everything they can do and be the best that they can be. So how can we translate what you're teaching and stuff and put it in that framework of young people?
Yeah, we actually just gave a speech to 1,100 students in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it was 7th and 8th graders, 9th and 10th, and 11th and 12th graders. And one of the big things we talked about was the difference between having a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And that's something that we talk about on our podcast to adults who may never heard of that. But I just imagine if you're 10, if you're 12, if you're 15, if you're 19, and you hear somebody say, "Hey, look, I know it seems like everything is the way it is now and it's going to be forever, but that's actually not true. You can change so much if you just practice these things and if you just learn these things. I know we think who we are today is who we are forever, but you are very, very malleable. You are genuinely a piece of clay that can be rolled and it can be stretched and it can be built into whatever it is you want to be if you start early enough and you do it long enough." And another thing we talk about a lot, James, is we talk about confidence. And you hear people talk a lot about confidence. But a lot of people don't understand the difference between having self-belief. So I believe that I can start a successful lemonade stand. And it's going to be great. We're going to have great lemonade. I'm going to charge 25 cents a cup. It's going to be wonderful. That's self-belief. But there's also another thing called self-worth. And that's me putting up boundaries and not allowing people to steal from my lemonade stand, or not letting people knock over my cups, not letting people litter around it. So there's a difference between believing you can accomplish something and setting boundaries while you accomplish something. So self-belief and self-worth, I wish I understood that when I was younger. Self-worth is such a valuable thing for a young human being to understand, because a lot of the decisions we're making are based on our self-worth. And what do we expect? What do we accept? And what are we hoping to get with our actions?
I love how you led off with the mindset, especially the fixed versus growth mindset. The thing that I see happening to most with youth when we talk to them about this is they do not recognize where they are in that. They don't either understand it, or even if they understand what the concept means, there's not enough self-realization, or they just don't understand. Hey, that's me. I'm in a fixed mindset. So if you were sitting there coaching them, you do group coaching with people, you work with adults and stuff, but if you were coaching a 14-year-old to 16-year-old, or even on up to 20-year-old, how would you help them identify the fact that they're in that fixed mindset? Don't you love these questions that just come out of nowhere like that? So.
I would lead with a loss. So I want to find a loss that you have experienced, and I want to explore what that loss means to you. So you got a D on your latest test. All right, cool. Let's talk about that. What does that mean to you? Well, I got a D. It means I failed. It's like, all right, why? Why does that mean you failed? For me, it's a lot about exploration and asking questions. So I really think of it from the aspect of, what result did you get? What does that result represent to you? And now what is your new behavior because of that result? So if you assume you got a D and the next test you're going to get a D, and that means you're a D student and you're not going to be able to graduate and you're not going to be able to get into college or whatever it may be, you're creating a fixed mindset. So it's almost like I want to go in and I want to put a stop to the current pattern, and I want to help you change the most recent and relevant proof that you have. What's happening is it's just an identity shift, right? When something happens, you start to shift your identity in alignment with that new thing. So you go from, well, I was a B student to a D student because I started getting Ds. Now in my mind, I assume I'm going to get Ds and I'm not going to study as hard, right? So it's very much, to our original point, bringing awareness to the decisions and then bringing awareness to the thoughts we have about the decisions and the results.
God, that's brilliant. To lead with a loss, to examine something that's happened and then come out of that. That's good coaching, boss. I like that.
I appreciate it.
That's worth the time right there, folks. Let's start a hashtag right now. If you're listening or watching, let's start a hashtag lead with a loss. Hashtag lead with a loss. Because that's really good. Because I was thinking through that. There was a young individual that I have worked with that grew up playing basketball year round, just active, got injured and was cut from his high school team before he even really had a chance to get on it. And it totally upended that young man's world. Everything was affected by it. Everything what was going on. And I was thinking, he's been fresh on my mind lately. And I was thinking when you were sharing that, Kevin, if we could have gone back to that point. Now, this has been like 4 years ago, but it's still not too late. To go back to that point and start to help him identify where the dominoes started to fall by leading with loss. How brilliant is that? That's awesome.
Oh, I appreciate it. I've had a lot of losses, so that's where I naturally, it's very hard to improve after a win. I mean, when you win something, everything feels good and you don't really know what to shift. When you lose, you can start pulling things out. I remember, James, I'll never forget this. This was a pivotal moment in my life. I think I was 13 years old, and I was playing in the All-Star team or on the All-Star team in Little League. And it was the last inning. I think we played 6 innings. There was runners on second and third, and we were down by 1. And I was probably the best hitter on the team. And I was up, and I was shaking in my boots. I was so afraid. And I struck out on 3 pitches right down the middle. I didn't swing at all. And I went home and I cried. And I cried and I cried because I had a very fixed mindset. What I should have done is said, okay, I was nervous. I struck out. Just because I struck out this time does not mean I'm going to strike out next time. If you look at the logic behind it, I was batting .400. I had a really good batting average. That was just 1 out of however many opportunities I had. But the problem is I focused on that. I think that, and for all the young people out there, understand that the differentiator between people who make it really far and people who don't necessarily make it far, it's what they do with adversity. So that gentleman who got cut from the basketball team, I think Kobe Bryant got cut from his basketball team too in high school.
Michael Jordan did, yeah.
Michael Jordan. So how do you respond to that adversity? Just because it happens does not mean that's the end of the road. It's usually a pivot. It can be a detour. And that really is it. It's not, remember I put this quote up, and again, it's kind of a fortune cookie quote, but you can take it. Life is what is it? 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. And it really, at the end of the day, it is.
So if we can work with youth to help them, look at those spots in their life where they have failed and kind of see, hey, I'm getting that negative thoughts. I'm pouring on the negative. I got the stinking thinking, as Mr. Ziegler used to say. I got the stinking thinking in my head, and we want to change that. How do we take them? What would be your first step if you were coaching that kid, that basketball player who got cut? What would be your first step to helping him move towards that growth mindset? So let's get some practical things here. There's a parent listening right now, and they're like, Junior's got a negative set, or there's a coach that is saying that. What would be some advice, step one to help move them forward?
Yeah, I would literally grab a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle. On one side, I want you to write every reason you can't make another basketball team. And on the other side, I want you to write every reason why you can make another basketball team. And I want you, it's very simple. It sounds oversimplified, but when you write it out, you're forcing yourself to actually come up with reasons, and you're forcing yourself to actually come up with logic. And then I want you to literally cross out all the I can'ts and then circle all the I cans. And those are the things that you're focusing on. It's the other thing too that's interesting, James. It depends on who's around you. So on our team, we always talk about fail forward, fail forward, fail forward, fail forward. But it's very easy to fail forward when you have people around you that understand the benefits of failing forward. So I would say you have to find somebody that you trust and find somebody that you can look up to and feel safe around to really explore this thought, because it's very hard if you're afraid of judgment to be open to failure. That's a real challenge, especially when you're younger. We assume failure is final when it's not. So I would make that list, and then I would go to a coach, or I'd go to a guidance counselor, or I'd go to a teacher or a parent, whoever it may be, and I would say, hey, I'd like to explore something with you. Am I safe to do that here?
That's brilliant. That is really good. It's that physical act of doing that I think is really going to drive the lesson home for them. We can give them all these accolades and have them watch this video, talk to them about it, fill their mind with all this great stuff. But when you actually are physically doing something like that, it is so much more powerful. I don't even think they realize and appreciate that act of writing stuff down.
It's bringing it into reality.
A friend who takes all of his notes and stuff online through his computer and about his life and stuff. And then I have another friend who writes everything down in his journal, hand writes it down, and they argue back and forth about which one is more effective. And the one that does it on computer is like always about efficiency and, I've got it here and I can put it in the cloud and I'll never lose it and it never fades away. But the other one is talking about how that act changes him over time because he sees it and he sees it in his hand. And plus he talks about it being a legacy that one day his kids can come and look at the notes that he wrote in his journals for years. And even if they're failing, see what their dad has done. He said, they're not going to look at my notes in a cloud. So Kevin, I really love that. I really love going from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset and that step one on that to be able to do that.
Thank you, my friend.
It's because it's such a big deal.
So what? We're, as human beings, we're gonna fail. The sooner you rebuild the relationship with failure, the better you'll be in the long run. And I say this during my speeches. The people who are more successful than you are also bigger failures than you. You just don't know it because you don't see their failures. I mean, Taylor Swift is one of the most successful musicians of all time. She's failed more than anybody else, most likely. Just nobody sees it. All right, nobody sees it. It's behind the scenes, a lot of those failures, and then she gets better. So understand that while failure might not seem cool, that's where all the growth is. There's a lot of growth in failure.
And it's where when you fail that you learn the skills that you need to succeed.
Yeah.
It's when you can take a step back and do that analysis of it and say, that didn't work, this didn't work, that didn't work. But what was it, Edison, that took him 10,000 tries to make the light bulb? And someone said, hey, are you sad it took you that long? He said, well, I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Yeah.
And basically it was his mindset. I'm getting closer and closer to that. And I love how you took it also to the self-worth. Because one of the things that we focus on here is identifying what the major issues youth are dealing with. And our audience has heard me say this. They probably are like, oh gosh, James is about to run that stat again. But we've interviewed about 2,500 youth, and almost 85% of them said in some way or another, the biggest issue and problem facing them, their answer was in the topic of self-image, that they struggle with their identity. And so what you're saying is really speaking to me here, because I can't work on somebody's mindset if they're looking at their life as just being a total wash, that I'm not worth anything. So
it's so hard when you're young because you just don't have that much experience.
Mm-hmm.
Your identity, I mean, okay, I'm 33. That's 33 years of identity versus 13 years of identity. There's not a lot of room in there for experience, because for the first 7 years of your life, you're not really understanding what's going on, right? So it's very important that, and that's why I went growth mindset first, because your self-image is going to change. And then even if we talk about confidence, that's a word that's thrown out there a lot. I'm not confident, I am confident. Confidence is a spectrum. It's not something you either have or you don't have. It's to what degree do you have it? Simplest thing in the world. Ask yourself a question. Okay, I had somebody reach out to me, and this person said, I want to be a speaker. Awesome. I love that. I love speaking. Cool, let's do it. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how outside of your comfort zone is it for you to do a speech on Facebook Live right now? And she said, that's a 12 out of 10. I am terrified. I said, all right, we're not going to do that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how outside of your comfort zone is it for you to record a video on your phone and show nobody? And she said, oh, it's like a 1. All right, not enough. On a scale of 1 to 10, how outside of your comfort zone is it for you to record a video and send it to me only? And she said, probably like a 5 or a 6. And I said, good, do that. A lot of us are looking at our hard no's. The hard no is getting on stage right now. That doesn't mean you can't speak in some way, shape, or form. So as somebody who is younger, we have to figure out what are the fears, and then what is the smallest thing we can do to face that fear. If you want to become more confident, you have to have at least enough belief to try something new. When you try something new, you get a result. And when you get a result, you get feedback. And when you get feedback, you get a new awareness. When you get a new awareness, you can take a new action. And that cycle rinses and repeats. But if you don't have enough belief to start, you don't take any new action, you don't get a new result, it doesn't make you think about it. When you don't think about it, you don't get any new awareness, and you get stuck in this conundrum of, I could never do that because. Start at the bottom of the mountain. Don't assume the first thing you do should be you climbing to the top. And that's definitely an easy, I won't say easy, but that's the lowest barrier to entry when it comes to building confidence, probably.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful stuff there. We've been talking a lot here about what they can do, what a youth can do, what a 15-year-old, the 20-year-old, 23-year-old can do. And so how about those who are working with them, who really have a passion to see them thrive? How can they help them with this cycle? Because that's and even for youth themselves, maybe giving them the insight on what they can do to help others will in turn help them. Because you and I both know that we have grown as individuals as we have dedicated our lives to bring value to others.
Yep.
People really have no idea. They think, oh gosh, you guys are just trying to do all this stuff, bringing value to others. It really is improving our lives much more than I think anyone realizes. So how can we help? How can we help someone who wants to do that? What are some things that we can help them with?
Yeah, I would say the easiest thing is you can lend your belief to somebody else to help them make a different decision. So say you're the adult in the room, whatever that means, whatever that age is. In theory, you're going to have more belief because you're going to have more life experience and you're going to be more competent. It's up to you to do the thing that's uncomfortable to help other people do the thing that's uncomfortable. So the story I always use for that, somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I'm afraid to go up to people and start conversations. And I'm in college and everybody's having these conversations, but I just feel always left out. And I said, all right, cool. We're going to go to the mall and we're going to start conversations with strangers. Now, I led. I'm going to take you to the mall and I'm going to go up to strangers and start conversations, and you're going to follow my lead. So that person borrowed my belief. So as the leader in the room, as the adult, it's your opportunity. I won't say it's your responsibility or your job. It's your opportunity to use your life experience to help somebody build belief. They can borrow your belief. That's one way to do it. And I think the other thing too is ask a lot of questions that help the students probe and think. That's what self-awareness is. Self-awareness is questioning things and then sitting with the discomfort or the silence or whatever it is long enough to come up with an answer that helps you understand yourself at a deeper level. If you have like prompts, why did you make the decision you made today? Why did you wear what you wore today? Why did you ask that question? It's going to force another layer of awareness, and it's a wonderful exercise so you can understand yourself at a deeper level. And when you understand yourself at a deeper level, everything starts to make a little bit more sense.
When you said that borrowing your belief, I was reminded of the man who does the coach training for the Ziegler Corporation's certification. He's written all these coach trainings. He's written ours, and he helps for our youth coaching certification. He says that coaching is just the transference of confidence. And that is exactly what you're there. And so my first thought was when you were going through that, I was like, people are going to hear us say this stuff. Hey, borrow your belief, borrow your confidence. And they're going to say, but Kevin, James, what if I don't have it? And you're wanting me to help. What am I going to do now? So what's our advice to them? Fake it till you make it type thing? Or
no, I don't like the fake it till you make it, because the problem is if you don't make it, you're going to be faking it forever. So that's a dangerous game. What I do think is there's always going to be somebody more confident than the other person. So no matter what, James, you are more confident in something than I am. I am more confident in something than you are. We just have to make sure that the pilot is in the seat at the right time and the co-pilot is in the right seat at the right time. So it's maybe you go to somebody else. Maybe as the leader or as the teacher or as the facilitator, you say, honestly, I have a really good idea of what to do, but I don't know if I can do it. What can I do to find somebody that will do it with me?
Yeah.
You can be the connector between the belief and the lack of. That's another way to do it too.
I believe in coaching processes. I believe in, that coaching is not just a free-for-all thing. If you're working with someone, that you really have to have a system and a process. And when we were discussing this, you were saying that the very first thing that came to my mind in that last little segment is that you have to have confidence in your process. If you don't have confidence in yourself, believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you got certified by such and such group, or you're basing your coaching on this principle, you believe in that. Hey, I know this works. You can believe me because this. And that's that transference going through as well. So for those who are listening to us and they're saying, hey, I like what you're saying, I want to help these folks, you need to find a process.
Yeah, it's very important. Because when emotions get tied up, you can kind of work through them, right? Because you have a system. What's the system? What's the system? What do I revert to? System. It's a great point.
Yeah, and it's the same in business. So people who are very successful in business rely on systems to get themselves going forward. I've owned several businesses over my career, started some, and we learned very early on we had to establish systems that are consistent and be persistent with them. As Tom Ziegler says, you got to be PC about life. You have to have persistent consistency. He tries to make a joke on that because he's not very PC himself. So going forward on that. So you talked about a holistic approach. What does that mean? I was thinking when you said the holistic approach, I said, I want to make sure I get back to that because I'm sure somebody's going to be like, what does that mean? Is that, because everybody thinks holistic, it has different meanings to different people.
Yeah. From my perspective is there's a lot of people out there who make a boatload of money, but they take their health for granted, or they make a boatload of money and their relationships aren't great. Holistic to me means being well-rounded. It means every day you pour into health, you pour into wealth, and you pour into love. a lot of us have really good habits around one thing, one aspect of life, but not necessarily all of them. So the same habits I have for business, I have for fitness. And the same habits I have for fitness, I have for my relationship, where every single day I have a checklist where it has health, it has wealth, and it has love. So every day I'm pouring into health, wealth, and love because I don't want to end up 15 years down the road and have a very successful business, but burn my relationship and my body to the ground. So holistic to me means well-rounded. It means success by fulfillment instead of success as a monetary figure or a relationship
metric.
Figure. Yeah. It's well-rounded. So being a well-rounded, fulfilled human being.
That is a principle. I think sometimes teachers, and especially current teachers and parents, are missing as they're working with young people growing up, is they focus on one thing. Hey, let's make sure that they are, academically ready or athletically ready, and they don't look at it from a whole sense, of what's going on. So and it just shakes some people up.
It's hard to lead where you haven't been. And I don't mean that in any negative way, but I mean, I try to go to the gym 5 times a week, right? We have 24 departments in our business, and I'm married, and it's very hard to grow all 3 of those at the same time. It's so challenging to do that, but I also know that if I was to lose one of those 3, I wouldn't be fulfilled. And that's why we try to lead by example. We don't do 7 episodes a week because I want to. We do 7 episodes a week because there's 7 days in the week. If there's another day, we'll be doing another episode. But I want to lead by example. It's important to lead by example. So it's almost one of those things where if you are a parent and your primary objective was to get into a good school and get a good job, you're not focused on the other things necessarily. Maybe you haven't got to that point in your life where you had a health scare and you say, wow, I really need to take my health more seriously. Or maybe you haven't got to the point where your relationship is strained. You say, wow, I'm kind of taking this for granted. I haven't been pouring into this bucket. I just think it's either a lack of awareness or a lack of implementation, depending on the situation.
I think we're hitting on too what I just alluded to a while ago, how much we grow when we're working with people. We grow because we're realizing these principles, and it kind of gives us a time for a self-assessment as well. So, those who are working with youth, you're right. It's like the stereotypical PE teacher that's significantly overweight. I mean, what's up with that?
Yeah.
You gotta practice what you preach in certain aspects of it, or there's not going to be validity in what you're saying at all. Yeah.
In order to influence somebody, more often than not, you have to have the result. If I jumped on here and you and I were talking about podcasting and I was like, yeah, I have 2 episodes. I know what's going on. That's not going to influence you, but I have 1,175 episodes.
Yeah.
Right.
You've been there, done that a little bit. Yeah.
I've been there, done that. And again, there's always room for improvement, but I have the result that most podcasters want. Hence, people will follow me more. That's all it is. So yeah, it's very important. It's just very important to understand that if you aren't practicing it, it's very hard to teach it.
There's so many truth bombs we've been dropping here today. I hope folks are taking notes as much as I am. Hey, if you're looking online, look at my notes there. You can see my notes. I am practicing what I'm telling you to do.
Yes.
I take notes quite a bit on there as it's going forward. I love these principles that we've talked about. I love the things that are going through here to help youth thrive, to help them get to the next level. I'm going to kind of pick your brain on this one and say it's, your tagline is helping folks get to the next level in life. What would you say to a 17-year-old is that next level in their life? I know that's kind of a weird out of the box question, but it was staring me in the face here, and I thought, well, that's a question I want to ask. Let's see where that one goes.
It's probably a 17-year-old. It's probably more confident, more competent, and more clear about what the next step in their life is going to look like. That's what I would say.
Man, there's some taglines that we use when we're doing stuff that you're just like echoing. And the fact that we just met, that's just really cool to me. I'm kind of getting geeked out over here.
I like it. I dig it. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. We're on the same wavelength, James, you and I.
What are the questions when we have guest hosts? When I have some of the youth question, the one question they always like to ask, and so I'm going to ask it for them, is what is the greatest piece of advice you have ever been given?
Two things. One, big things start very small. So the things that we look up to and the things that influence us and the apps and the stores and the commercials and the actors and the actresses and everything, at one point, nobody knew about them at all. That, I like that. That's super important to understand because things take time. That's part one. Part two is many of us assume where we are today is where we are forever. And we assume where someone else is today is where they were forever. When in reality, we all start from the same place. That is such a valuable thing for me because I could look at where I am and say, wow, we're successful podcasters, blah, blah, blah. 5 years ago, I started with 0 episodes just like everybody else. So I can also lose sight of somebody who's 15 years ahead, but it's important to understand 10 years ago, they were where we are. That perspective is very key for me.
Oh, that is very good, Kevin. I love that. How can I hope the audience is excited and geeking out about this stuff as I am. How can our audience connect with you and learn more about what you do and take advantage of some of the things that you have to offer?
Yeah, I always send people to the podcast, so it's always free. There's no ads. There's none of that. You can find it at any of the podcast platforms, on YouTube as well. Just search Next Level University. James was kind enough to put up the website, nextleveluniverse.com. If you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions, if you need anything, my name is Kevin Palmieri on Facebook and LinkedIn, and my handle is @NeverQuitKid on Instagram. So anything you need, please do not ever hesitate to send a message my way.
And what are some of the things that you offer people of all ages, not just youth, but of all ages and all different levels of their life?
Yeah, so we have everything from, we have a free course on the website, we have a paid course on the website, we do one-on-one coaching where it's anything from mindset to high-level business. I have a podcast service company where we help podcasters. We have live events, we have retreats, we have, you name it, there is an opportunity for you to get better, and there's most likely a way that we can help you do it.
I love that. What's your free class about?
Our free course is on it's called the Next Level 5 to Thrive, where we broke down the 5 things that we thought were the most important fundamentals and said, all right, honestly, we were going to charge for it. It was going to be a paid course. And we said, let's just give it away. It's an hour and a half of us in our podcast studio. There's worksheets, there's cut scenes, there's a bunch of stuff that goes with it too. Very valuable. It's a very valuable course.
And you see that. Did you notice what he did, audience? You know, that's how he dropped that there's 5 things, but he didn't tell you what those 5 things were.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good, folks. That's the hook to bring you drawing in. So I like that. Like that a lot. So Kevin, thank you for being a part of our show today. Listen, audience, everything, all his links and everything are going to be in show notes. So obviously, if you're on YouTube, just look straight down, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can just do the clicks on. If you're listening, go whatever app you have, and you can also find those links there. Everything is going to be there. His social media links, the links to this site, direct links to his podcast on YouTube will be there as well. Kevin, thank you. I love how the stars align. I love how God providentially puts people in my direction. This has been a geekathon for me, and I really like this.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Thank you for introducing me to the audience, and thank you to everybody out there listening. I appreciate it.
And for our audience, thank you guys for sticking with us to the end of the show. Listen, somebody that you know really needs to hear this message today. So please like and share and comment on this, and we'll see you again next week on our show.